Hey, Frank, so glad you're here. This Hormuz peace deal, it's just wild. Every major outlet's calling it a 75% event, but then the market is pricing it at 62 cents. What's that gap all about?
Amara, it's fascinating, truly. That 13-point gap, that's the whole thing. You've got Samsung's chip division, right? 50 times profit a year ago. Kospi hosting 7,000. All of that's built on one big assumption. The ceasefire holds. The equity markets priced for peace. But the prediction market, where actual money is on the line, is 13 points below the headlines. That's unresolved, you know?
So the market's saying something the headlines aren't. What's causing that specific difference?
Well, the cause is very specific. There's a second track to this deal that almost nobody's covering carefully, and it runs on a different clock. Most coverage is treating this leaked 14-point memorandum as a done deal. But the contracts, they're actually reading it as something that could be undone by its own design before it's even signed. The collision point is May 8th. Washington circulating a Chapter 7 UN sanctions draft then. That's the answer, really.
Okay, so May 8th, Chapter 7. So this gap, it's like not just noise then.
Exactly. I mean, my first instinct, with any gap like that, especially when the contract, Hormuz memo, only carries a moderate liquidity rating, it's not super deep, right? My first instinct is to stress test it. Because yeah, a 13-point gap with thin trading can be noise. That's a real technical objection. But here's where the stress test lands, Amara. When you dig past the price and actually read the structural argument underneath it, that gap, it survives the liquidity question, totally.
Oh, wow. So it's not just a few cautious traders making the market thin?
Not at all. The reason the book is sitting at 62 cents isn't a handful of cautious traders. It's a specific, documented incompatibility between two timelines. The UN sanctions draft circulates May 8th. The MOU has a signing target of May 15th. That's a 7-day window, right? The coercive architecture of the multilateral track is fully live before the bilateral track is even closed. That, Amara, is not a noise artifact. That's a structural collision with a date on it. The order book is pricing it correctly, regardless of the liquidity. It's a mechanical thing.
Okay, so May 8th and May 15th. Let's put that sequence in order, because I think that order is exactly what a lot of the coverage is missing, What's this bilateral track actually trying to do?
Right. So the bilateral track, that's Witkoff, Kushner, Iranian counterparts, they're negotiating this 14-point memorandum, just one page. And here's the critical bit. It doesn't resolve nuclear terms, not at all. It defers them to a 30-day framework that only begins after the MOU is signed. It suspends the straight blockade mutually, which is big, obviously, but it's a bridge, Amara, not a settlement.
A bridge? So they're trying to get to the bridge before the settlement because the settlement would take months, like literally months?
Exactly. The MOU's stated value is just that it creates this space between hot war stopped and nothing truly resolved, And that's the document being called a 75% event this morning. And the big reason it cannot resolve nuclear terms is Iran's position is really explicit. They want to retain uranium enrichment rights for peaceful purposes. That's not like a negotiating opening. That's a stated structural demand. And the White House itself acknowledges that Iranian leadership is divided on a moratorium. They can't resolve that internal Iranian disagreement from the outside. That fracture, that's the load the MOU is being asked to span, and it's just not designed to carry it.
Wow, so the bilateral track is carrying terms it just can't resolve, and it's all deferred to a framework that hasn't even started. And while that's live, May 8th arrives. Washington circulates this Chapter 7 draft. What does that actually mean?
Okay, so Chapter 7. It's meant to condemn Iranian interference with Hormuz transit, right? Demand they stop attacks, condition Security Council review on their compliance. And important to remember, no explicit authorization of force, but Chapter 7 is the framework that permits anything from sanctions all the way to military action. And Russia and China, they've got competing language, and it's all under active consideration. This is the exact same blocking infrastructure, Amara, that was operating through the September 2025 Security Council vote. 9 against, 4 in favor, and it failed to achieve support. That September precedent, it's totally load-bearing for what we're looking at now.
So it doesn't even need to pass to mess things up for the bilateral deal?
Precisely. Russia and China have been consistently blocking since the E3 triggered the snapback mechanism, back in August 2025. That's a documented pattern. So the May 8th draft doesn't even need to pass to do damage, it just needs to exist. Once a Chapter 7 draft is formally in the Council record, the bilateral negotiation is no longer operating in a vacuum. The multilateral architecture is live, with its own enforcement framing, precisely when the bilateral track needs maximum uncontested space to close. The contradiction isn't hypothetical, it's mechanical, and it has a calendar.
And that's what the 62 cents is pricing, isn't it? Not whether the deal's possible, but this mechanism of its own cancellation, and what that means for us, like with gas prices, right?
Absolutely. The strait's been closed since February 28th, and that closure, it's been showing up at gas stations across the country since March. The domestic political pressure ahead of the November 2026 midterms is documented. A signed MOU, it'd lower gasoline prices within days, Amara. Shipping access normalizes, oil futures reprice immediately. That's a specific number at a specific pump. The 13-point gap is the probability that the mechanism delivering that number stalls before it closes. But here's the thing, it's not sitting in isolation.
Oh, really? What else is tied in?
AI-GOV-REV, for instance, is at 45 cents. That contract price is whether the US government mandates formal review of frontier AI models. The market's barely diverging from the narrative there, rated verdict B. But on the same day the Hormuz contract is at 62 cents, CAISY, the Center for AI Standards and Innovation, just signed pre-deployment evaluation agreements with Google DeepMind, Microsoft xAI. Voluntary agreements, no statutory mandate. That voluntariness, Amara, is doing a lot of work in that framing, and there's a distortion there.
Okay, so these voluntary agreements from 2 years ago, they're the foundation Casey's now expanding on. And the 45 cents is pricing the interval between this voluntary state and a potential statutory mandate? But you said there's a structural distortion.
Yeah, totally. Here's the distortion, Amara. The firms that enrolled voluntarily, Microsoft, Google, xAI, OpenAI, Anthropic, they now hold a pre-clearance channel that non-enrolled developers just can't access. If voluntary converts to mandate, these enrolled firms aren't disadvantaged by the new compliance cost. They've already built it. But the smaller developers who haven't enrolled, they're going to face a moat structure that the mandate would cement. The voluntary agreement is simultaneously safety governance and a competitive barrier. That 45-cent coin flip, it's pricing the transmutation as genuinely uncertain. But the structural direction of travel, it's not uncertain at all, It's sequential. Every voluntary commitment becomes the stone for the next mandatory layer.
Wow, so it's a strategic advantage masked as like a proactive safety measure. And I remember Georgetown CSET put an even harder point on this, didn't they? About CISI's own capacity.
They did, absolutely. CISI lacks the compute access and technical staffing to independently evaluate these models. They actually depend on the regulated entities for the infrastructure of regulation itself. That's not a budget fix, Amara, it's a structural condition. The government's pre-deployment review is, in practice, a bilateral access arrangement where the firms being reviewed are literally co-producing the review environment. Those enrolled firms have meaningful influence over what the process can and cannot find. That's the concealed architecture behind the 45 cents, and it connects back to the Hormuz contract in a way the equity markets haven't priced,
Oh, it connects? How so? Because chip capex, that's at 88 cents. Deep liquidity, high conviction, right? Like the AI infrastructure boom is totally real.
It absolutely is. Samsung's 50-fold semiconductor profit, Kospi at 7,000, HBM4 mass production for NVIDIA's Vera Rubin architecture, the market believes it sustains. But that 88-cent conviction, it's built on the exact same underlying assumption the 62-cent Hormuz contract is itself hedging against. The equity market and the prediction market are in structural disagreement on the same premise. And most coverage? They're reading them as separate stories because, they live in separate sections of the financial press. That, Amara, is the hidden correlation the session flagged.
So, the Samsung earnings, Kospi record, chip valuations, all priced on a world where the strait opens, energy normalizes, and AI capex continues unimpeded. The compute market hasn't built in the cost of what you call Path 2.
Precisely. Path 2, where the MOU stalls at May 8th, the UN architecture acquires formal council posture, and the bilateral track resets without a statutory endpoint. That re-enters the energy cost structure that has been suppressing AI deployment economics since February 28th. The Morningstar note is specific on the supply side. New semiconductor capacity takes 2 to 3 years. That sustains near-term pricing for DRAM and NAND. But that's a cost-side observation, not demand. The demand assumptions inside that 88-cent contract are downstream of energy price stability. If Hormuz reprices war risk, the macro just compresses the AI capex environment from the cost side, and the 88-cent floor becomes a ceiling. That's institutional, And here's the harder consequence.
What's the harder consequence if the MOU just stalls? Not fails, but just stalls,
Well, if it stalls at May 8th, the structural state is ceasefire nominally intact, Chapter 7 draft formally in the Council record, bilateral track neither closed nor abandoned. That limbo, Amara, that's the most expensive outcome on the board, and most coverage isn't pricing it because it has no clean headline. In that state, AI infrastructure valuations priced on Path 1 remain bid for about 72 hours. After that, the energy-linked cost input for AI deployment begins to reprice. CapEx guidance from hyperscalers will carry a conditional qualifier it doesn't today. And Samsung's 50-fold earnings premium, it'll face the question, what happens to HBM4 demand when data center build-out slows because energy costs are rising and the macro is uncertain? The answer isn't catastrophic, it's that the floor moves. And the floor moving on 88 cents, that's not a thin book event. That's institutional money repricing a structural assumption. And the signal will appear first in the Hormuz contract, not in semiconductor equities. It's a huge deal.
So, basically, these two choke points aren't separate stories running on parallel tracks, right? The strait closes February 28th, AI governance expands May 5th. Both control surfaces, energy, and model deployment. May 8th is when we find out if they're priced on the same assumption and if that assumption actually holds. It all resolves first at the Hormuz contract, not the governance contract. The AI coin flip? That's the slower clock, isn't it?
Totally. The fast clock ticks at May 8th, and the fork is absolutely dated. May 8th, Washington circulates the UN draft. The White House expects Iranian responses on key MOU points in that exact same 48-hour window. Those two clocks, Samara, they run simultaneously. And the reporting is explicit about what happens if they don't align. The memorandum's provisions are contingent on a final agreement being reached. That leaves the possibility of renewed war, or extended limbo, where hot war has stopped but nothing's resolved.
So the watch signal isn't May 15th, it's May 8th plus 48 hours.
That's exactly it. If Hormuz memo moves below 55 cents in those 48 hours, capital is pricing Path 2. Not failure, Amara, but Path 2. The distinction truly matters. Path 2 isn't the war restarting. It's the bilateral track stalling while the multilateral architecture just acquires weight. A different kind of fragility, harder to name in a headline, but much easier to price in a contract. That's when you find out whether the 13 points of vigilance the order book has been carrying resolves as caution rewarded or caution spent. The covenant that prices its own cancellation resolves first at the mechanism nobody in the headline layer is reading, the collision between a Chapter 7 draft and a 14-point memorandum on the same 7-day clock. Watch the number, Amara. The number already knows.
And with that profound insight, my dears, we close this captivating session. Thank you truly for watching. If you found this journey into the market's hidden whispers as compelling as I did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to help our network grow. Your engagement is our heartbeat.
Indeed, Amara. The core takeaway: prediction markets offer a granular fidelity to reality, often missed by broader narratives. These numbers aren't just figures, they're probabilities of structural outcomes, signaling before headlines catch up.
It's almost unsettling, isn't it, Frank? To think that beneath daily news, there's this intricate dance of probabilities, forecasting fates far more subtly.
Undeniably accurate. Hormuz's cancellation mechanism, or AI governance's structural advantage masked as safety. These undercurrents dictate macro trends. Ignoring them means an incomplete world model.
So, the watch continues, not just on May 8th, but on every hidden correlation, every subtle shift that shapes our future. A testament to seeing